All right, guys. Adam Trigger here. It's Tuesday. Time for On the Clock. Sorry about the 5%. If you tailed that last night, Nationals plus 1.5 did not get there. I have to be honest, it's a play. I would probably make 10 times out of 10 at the price I made it at. Nationals plus 1.5, minus 110. I feel like my handicap on Skeens and the Pirates was mostly good. Skeens made it 6 innings, gave up 2 runs. Only one of them was earned. That's kind of where I expected him to be at. The Pirates tried to beat themselves, 4 errors. Not a good baseball team, but the Nats, unfortunately, just too many mistakes, too many 2-out hits. Brad Lord was not as sharp as I expected him to be. And then we really had the chance late. 5-3 game, top of the 8th, and Nathaniel Lowe missed a 2-run game-tying home run by like inches. Just missed it, ended up flying out to the warning track. Obviously, it's a totally different situation, bottom 8, if it's 5-5 as opposed to 5-3, and the Nats just kind of, had a different reliever out there, and then, once they gave up a couple runs, there was no point in burning anyone else. So, ends up a 10-3 final, but it's a play I would make again. And again, like the KBO play I talked about on here ended up being a play for me as well yesterday. Got everything right. Ruben Cardenas back in the lineup. Lee was back after missing all weekend. We get the ball to Kenny Rosenberg with a 4-0 lead. Like, that's just got to be a win. That is a terrible loss right there for Kaiwoom to get the ball, Rosenberg on the mound, get him a 4-0 lead. That should have been like, he just didn't have his best stuff. Credit to Lotte, got some big-time hits. We even had a lead 6-5 going into the bottom of the 8th inning. Gave up a 2-run homer. So, so a disappointing start. Great end to last week. 1-5 straight to close out the week. Disappointing start to this week. I'm really not sure what I'm going to have the rest of the day. So on this show, we're going to talk about a couple of Major League Baseball games. I've got 3 MLB games. I may play some AAA. I don't know. All of that is lineup roster based. So going to probably lose the Durham play in the afternoon. But for tonight, I'll probably look at some AAA. I will likely add something, probably find something to play 3% in Major League Baseball. I am waiting for KBO lines, but the likelihood is I'll probably have another 4% top rated in KBO that goes in the morning. And I will use my $5 Tuesday play on that game. So keep an eye out for that. I'm not going to talk any KBO on here. If I have any KBO, it will be that $5 play. So keep an eye out for that. So I will talk 3 Major League Baseball games that I have opinions in that very well may get added as plays. And again, like I said, probably no 4%ers the rest of the day. It would most likely be a 3%. But I will let you know if they're client plays. I'll tweet that out if I add client plays in any of them. So 3 minutes on the clock, and we're going to start down in South Beach. Let's talk D-backs, Marlins. This game kind of came up late in our show this morning, Total Bases, with myself, Tokyo Brandon, and Brian Leonard. And Brian Leonard kind of brought this up a couple weeks ago. What the Marlins were doing from a player development standpoint. And I kind of went back and, it's something that I started to notice last year around the trade deadline. I felt like the Marlins just hit it out of the park with some of the moves they made at the trade deadline last year, grabbing Agustin Ramirez from the Yankees, grabbing Devison De Los Santos from the Diamondbacks organization. And then the one that stands out the most was they absolutely fleeced the Orioles, getting rid of Tanner Scott and turning him in to Kyle Stowers and Connor Norby. Norby's hurt right now. Stowers hitting third. He's been awesome. And really, like, down the line, they ended up grabbing Matt Mervis from the Cubs organization. Could never really find his way into the lineup with the Cubs. He's been great. And then you've got homegrown talent making their way up. Xavier Edwards, Griffin Conine. This is a really interesting team. And one I think is way, way undervalued by the books. I think the Marlins are getting treated as a bottom of the barrel team. They're much, much better than that. And they're a team that I'm really interested in kind of, backing anywhere that I can going forward, because I think this is probably the biggest sort of discrepancy of any team now, right now, where I see where the books have the Marlins and where I have the Marlins. It's probably the biggest discrepancy that I can find. The other thing that's really been impressive is the Marlins pitching and and this is what Brian was kind of talking about in detail the last couple weeks on our show. They went and kind of overhauled player development, got a new pitching coach in there, and it's really helped guys like Max Meyer and maybe Connor Gillespie, who was a guy that I did not like at all during his time with the Guardians organization. I would play against him when I could at Columbus last year. I didn't think he was a big league caliber pitcher, but you know what? Like, he's got a new, new change of scenery, different coaching. He's added a sweeper. I don't know that he's going to be a guy that hangs around in the Marlins starting rotation very long. I think he's there sort of keeping the spot warm for a couple of guys that are still, kind of coming back from injury, but he's certainly not hurting them, with the 4 or 5 innings that he's out there. So again, I don't think he's going to win you a game, but right now he's good enough where he can go 4 or 5 innings, give up 1 run, keep a team in a game. And in a case like this, where you're getting Marlins plus 1.5, minus 120, that's probably good enough. And that's the way I would look to play this game. Now, Merrill Kelly, I think he's sort of overvalued at this point in his career. Remember, this is a guy that he was one of the first guys to kind of come back from KBO, and actually make it back into the big leagues. But that was years ago at this point. I think he's on the decline of his career right now. I just don't think he's worthy of like minus 160 price tags on the road. He got roughed up by the Yankees earlier this year. I think I don't like where he's been priced in the market. I don't think this is Merrill Kelly of a couple years ago. I think he's kind of maybe on the decline, and minus 155 is crazy in my opinion right there. So just based on straight up where I had, and the other thing, the point I want to make, because I know I've talked on the show about how much I like the Diamondbacks, and I do. I love this Diamondbacks team as well, but Ketel Marte being out is huge, and not in a good way for the Diamondbacks. That is a massive blow. I had to downgrade this Diamondbacks team with Marte out. So Marlins plus 120 is how I would look here. And it's just a general, I just really like what I've seen on the Marlins, from the Marlins. I think they're massively undervalued. So Marlins plus 120 is something I'll give some consideration to tonight. Went way over on that first one. So we're going to tighten it up here, stay within 3 minutes on these last two, and keep this show under 15 minutes. Let's move right along to the team that I probably came out of the gate thinking was the most undervalued team in the league, and that's the A's. I desperately want to call them the Oakland A's, of course. As we know, they are no longer that. They don't want to be called the Sacramento A's, so we're just calling them the Athletics, and they are going to hit the road tonight to the Windy City to take on the Chicago White Sox. And this is the dynamic here that I love this A's team. They're right up there still with the Marlins as a team I think is massively, massively undervalued by the market, but that goes out the window when you play a team like the White Sox. And suddenly the A's go from being significantly undervalued to probably overvalued in this series, because I just don't think the A's should really ever be minus 160 on the road. Very, very rarely would I ever agree with that pricing, and I certainly don't agree with it here. Jeffrey Springs gets the ball for the A's. He's been super disappointing to me. I backed him against the Cubs. I felt like he had nothing, couldn't hit his spots, was all over the place. Cubs blew him up, and last week against the Padres, I really feel like he kind of got away with just not being that good. Padres kind of let him off the hook. Don't think they had Tatis in that series. A couple other guys, I believe Merrill was already hurt and Cronenworth got hurt. So I felt like he got let off the hook for not being great. And if you look at those last 2 starts for Jeffrey Springs, 6 walks in what was just 9 innings pitched. He just hasn't been very good. And so I just can't get behind him with some of the other issues that the A's have. I can't get behind him as a minus 160 option, especially like with the White Sox. Like, they haven't had terrible at bats. That's the thing. Like, the White Sox are 4-11. I think they've played far better than the White Sox of last year. I know they're only 4-11, but a lot of those losses were 1-run losses. Like, this is a team playing much better baseball than last year, yet they're still being priced like they were last year. Now, Sean Burke, I talked about on opening day when I did this show with Brian Power. We did a live on the clock, and I talked about liking Sean Burke, thinking he's 6'6". He just looks like a starting pitcher. He's got the stuff. He was excellent against the Angels in his first start. He was outstanding last year when he got called up. Had a great September for the White Sox. Hasn't been as good the last two starts. Guardians and Twins kind of knocked him around a little bit. But I'm not ready to give up on Burke. And a lineup like the A's. Now, I've talked about the A's. Ton of upside in this lineup. A lot of good hitters. They are a little bit young and a little bit undisciplined at the plate. And I'll point to Randy Vasquez last week. I backed them against Randy Vasquez, and they just got themselves out. It was, I'll talk more about Randy Vasquez in a minute, but really just didn't have good at-bats. Didn't have good at-bats over the weekend against Senga on Sunday. So the A's are a lineup that I do think is going to run a little bit hot and cold. Cannot possibly be this big of a favorite on the road. So White Sox plus 1.5 is the way I would look in that one. And I will continue to talk about Randy Vasquez as we wrap this show up. Cubs, Padres, and this is probably my favorite out of the three that we're talking about here. 3 minutes on the clock. The Cubs are going to win tonight. And unfortunately, everyone got that memo earlier, like overnight and early this morning, except for me, because this was like minus 120 and it steamed all the way up to like minus 160. The Cubs have taken a ton of money to the point where I guess I'm just going to see if the Padres get some buyback. Like the Padres are still arguably, like they're probably the better of these two teams. Like if we're just looking at team next to team, the Padres are still probably the better of the two teams. I got to imagine someone somewhere at some point is going to start to play back at the market if this gets too out of control. If this were to come back down 20 cents to like minus 145, minus 140, I'd probably throw a 3-unit play on the Cubs because I think they're going to absolutely destroy Randy Vasquez. And I think you could look at first 5 and game here. So Randy Vasquez, you want to talk about getting away with being bad. He's gotten away with it maybe more than any pitcher in the big league so far this year. 3 starts, 15.2 innings pitched. He's really only had one kind of quote-unquote bad start, which was against this Cubs team. He has 12 walks against just 6 strikeouts, 15.2 innings pitched. As I said, I unsuccessfully played against Vasquez last week with the A's. It was baffling. The A's it was just bad at bat after bad at bat. Somehow Vasquez in 5 innings only gave up 1 hit. Of course, he walked 3 guys, but he only gave up 1 hit. And it was just like, he was like effectively wild. A's would just swing at pitches off the plate. They just got themselves out. The Cubs are not going to do that. And the Cubs in the first meeting. So again, the Cubs had just seen him. They have the luxury of having just seen him. And in that game, 4.2 innings pitched, 3 runs, only 2 of them earned. He walked 5 guys, struck out just 2. That stat line, more often than not, against a team like the Cubs, is going to get you destroyed. It's going to get you blown up 6 or 7 runs. So, and that's kind of what I think is going to happen here. So, again, Padres have the better bullpen, and the Padres are a very good baseball team. Like I talked about this morning with Brian and Tokyo Brandon. I don't really want the Cubs in a close game late where it's like bullpen against bullpen, Padres on their home field. The Padres always seem to find a way in games like that. So I do like the Cubs full game. I like them just as much first 5, even if you have to lay the half run, even if you have to play at Cubs minus a half first 5. I think they're going to absolutely light up Randy Vasquez. It should be enough for them to ride to a win, but give them twice through the order against Vasquez. I'll be shocked if they don't have a couple crooked numbers up there. So Cubs, we'll call it first half and game. Probably my strongest opinion of the 3. I just badly missed the price to play the Cubs full game. Can't think they're like minus 160 right now. Can't do that when you could have had minus 120. But the first 5 hadn't moved as much, and first 5 minus a half really hadn't moved much at all. So take a look at those. That's 3 MLB games. I will have a KBO play up for the morning for just $5 as part of $5 Tuesday. And we'll regroup from this tough start to the week. Again, 5 straight wins over the weekend, lose a couple to start the week. It's going to go like that. That's how baseball is. But I'm sure we can close the week strong. If I get the number I want, I have a KBO spot in the morning that I really like. It's going to be all about getting the line that I want. So yeah, I expect to have a play in KBO. And like I said, that will be the $5 play as part of $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk, which is good for all handicappers. So go on to WagerTalk.com, check out $5 Tuesday, and we will see you guys back in the morning. We're adding a day. That's the other thing. Appreciate you guys that are tuning in to Total Bases on Tuesday and Friday mornings. We've gotten great feedback for that. We are going to add a third day. So now Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday for Total Bases. I will see you guys 9 a.m. with Brian Leonard and Tokyo Brandon. We'll be hitting the MLB slate for Wednesday. See you guys tomorrow.